everyone, welcome to Megha Discourse, and today we are going to explore the postmodern age. And this age is one of the most fascinating and complex period in English literature. The reason is that unlike earlier literary eras, this postmodern period challenges truth. It challenges the established truth and it questions on grand narratives. It actually rejected the grand narratives and it celebrates plurality. Plurality means more than one. It celebrates simulcara, it celebrates relativism. Okay, we can find multiplicity, irony in the postmodern period because it is fragmented period. And why it is most important for UGC net exam or any other exams? The reason is that it is most contemporary literature, theory, criticism, and you can find most of the theories and criticism like culture studies. It is derived from postmodern thought. Understanding postmodernism is crucial for answering questions on literary movements, writer, works, criticism. We have many literary genres. It is very vast. Actually, postmodernism is rebel. Okay, so we have to understand this in detail. So stay connected till the end of the video. Okay, you will find some valuable points in this lecture which will help you in your exam. It is only the overview of age. Now, what actually postmodernism? So postmodernism is a cultural, artistic and literary movement which rejects universal truth and embraces skepticism and valuable plural perspective. And this term is emerged in mid-20th century. It is actually related to art and architecture, but there is a semantic shift and it extended to literature and philosophy. Earlier I told you about semantic shift, that when a meaning of a word changes duration of time over a period of time, that is the semantic shift. And Lyotard in 1979, he described postmodernism as incredulity towards metanarratives. That is, it questions totalizing explanation of history, society and culture. It is our PYQ that who has given this phrase incredulity towards meta-narrative. Okay, so it spans 1945 to present time and peak time was 1990s. Okay, so this is about the overview of our postmodern age. It is very mandatory to have the idea of historical background, social background. Okay, so the postmodern age arose in world had witnessed a devastation, technological revolution and ideological conflict. So understanding its historical background help us comprehend the literature and theory that followed major events. Like in this period we find the end of World War II, which is the period 1945. So the defeat of Axis powers, it reshaped the global political order and leading to the rise of new superpowers and ideological conflict. Then we have Hiroshima and Nagasaki attack 1945, the nuclear bombing, which introduced the world to unprecedented human destruction, reflecting existential anxiety in literature. So first time the nuclear bombing could be seen. Then there is a rise of USA and USSR, and I know you were well aware about USSR. Okay, so the world was polarized into two ideologies, capitalist democracy and communist socialism. So and they both were shaping the Cold War era. So the next event was Cold War, happened in 1947 to 1991. In this we can find so many little incidents like Berlin blockade, Korean War. Okay, we have missile crisis, Vietnam War. So the impact of war can be seen on a grand level. There's a fear of nuclear war, ideological literature, dystopian fiction emerged like The Handmaid's Tale, 1984. Okay, where then we also find political fear in this era. Then we found space race What is actually the terming? A race to get the space authority. There is a scientific temperament. There is a competition which symbolized human progress, technological anxiety, Cold War rivalry. Example, अच्छा चाइना ने एक मिसाइल बनाई तो अमेरिका वाला कह देता है कि लाओ हम भी एक मिसाइल बनाते हैं. That is the space race. Okay. Then we have fall of Berlin Wall in 1989, a big event. It marked the end of Cold War. Then there is a collapse of communist regime and new hope of global unity emerged. Then the globalization era in 1980s onward, it came forward. So economically, cultural, technologically, they were interconnected to nations, and they influenced literatures. The theme of hybridity and diaspora, Homi ke Baba, can be seen in this world. Then the rise of technology and internet. How can we forget that? So information revolution, cyber culture, and the ways of storytelling, literature and media. Okay, so this were the impact historically happened during postmodern period. Then postmodern society is characterized by fragmentation, टूटी बिखरी हुई, plurality, more than one outlook they had, and questioning of identity, existential crisis, escapism be found. So social conditions deeply influenced postmodern literature, and you will find that the literature of postmodern world is very familiar to human. Okay, it actually creates mirroring of life, fragmentation. Individual experiences a breakdown of personal and societal narratives because of wars. Then there is a consumerism, media, advertising, commercial culture dominating daily life can be seen, and this theory is explained by Raymond Williams, and I hope Komal ma'am have explained it very well, okay, in the culture studies. Then there is an identity crisis. People were questioning race, gender, nationality and personal identity. Before Victorian era, you will not see that there is a literature which actually evident on racism. Okay, but after Victorian age, when we are moving to modernity, postmodernity, then we find literature is oriented to racism, gender biasing. Okay, then we find multiculturalism. Literature reflects multiple culture voices and global perspective. Then feminism. Okay, and this there we have second and third wave of feminism. Okay, so fourth wave can be seen in the Victorian age and postmodern age. During this was the first wave, and now the second and third wave can be seen. So women writers actually challenged patriarchy and very staunch, and they explore female identity, the sexuality. They are now embracing that less we are women. Now we have civil rights movements, Africa American and anti-racist movement. That's why we have Chinua Achebe, Holsoyinka. Okay, so we can see that now people of Africa America and anti-racist movement are emerging, and people are fighting for their rights now, and it influenced political and literary discourse. And I think you have read the autobiography of Nelson Mandela. Okay, then there's an LGBTQ movement. How can we forget that most important point? The voices of sexual diversity and freedom appear in literature and theory. That's why we have the question on LGBTQ queer theory, and I will make a separate video in which I will try to assimilate the writers which is related to this type of movements and literature. Okay, then we have post-colonial societies, new independent nations in Asia, Africa, Caribbean. They explore culture hybridity. They are mixing culture, they have blending identities, and why we have Caribbean literature, we have African literature, Asian literature, how they emerged, what is the importance behind that. Okay, then we have political and economic background, and it is also necessary to understand that what is happening in the world economically and politically. So capitalism and neoliberal policies emerged. Market-driven economies, privatization, globalization, they affected literature. Like 1992, we have LPG, okay, liberation, privatization and globalization. So it affected literature's theme of consumerism and alienation. Then we have World Bank and IMF, International Monetary Fund, which influence on developing nations, economy often became the backdrop of post-colonial literature. We have decolonization, yani ki that means the independence movements like India 1947, African nations, Caribbean nations gave rise to post-colonial identity and literature. That's why we have a huge group that is Commonwealth nation. Then there's a rise of new nation state. Literature explored nation building, migration and hybrid identities. For example, Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children. Okay, so these type of literature can be seen, and they actually explained what was happened during the decolonization phase, in that rising of new nation phase, how they get independence, at what cost they get independence. So this type of literature is important for our exam as well. That's why we have a separate video on partition literature. Watch that video, and which is very important for your exam point of view. Now the most important topic, literary background, because in that period we have so many literary genres, so many writers. They are from Russia, Africa, Asia, Caribbean, they are from Africa, Afro-American. Okay, so literature is vast in postmodern age. So we are just taking overview of major writers. Okay, you have to study it well and thoroughly, and you have to update your notes as well. And postmodern literature emerged as a reaction against modernism. Look, shared a philosophy with you that this is actually grandfather and grandson. Okay, postmodernism follows the features of Victorian. Modernism follows the features of Romanticism. So this type of khichdi happened in the ages of English literature. So they actually rebelled modernist thought. You can see the decline of realism in postmodernism. The modernism loved realism, but they declined that. They rejected the objectivity, linear narratives lost relevance in this period. They find multiple perspective became the norms now. Okay, they followed metafiction, pastiche, irony. What is metafiction? Okay, now let us understand this term, and it is very important so far as the paper is concerned. You watch serials, okay, and in the serial there is a warning, चेतावनी, while they play their actual drama, and this is said, इस कहानी का वास्तविकता से कोई लेना देना नहीं है, यह पूरी तरह से काल्पनिक है. This is what metafiction works. The writer, the narrator, they deliberately makes the character like that you have to believe that, and the narrator or the main hero, he deliberately, okay, exposes that yes, it is metafictional, it is not the reality, it is imaginary. Okay, so this is what metafiction. Pastiche means the historical context, the past thing, okay, parody of the real thing. Then irony, it means satirical. Okay, so literature becomes self-reflexive, that is metafiction, mixing genres and often playful or ironic. So we actually parodizing things. So there is no single truth, there is no grand narratives like Lyotard said. So truth became subjective, history and reality were questioned. So this is what actually postmodernism worked in literature. Like there is influence of Sigmund Freud, psychoanalysis, the unconscious mind, the latent dream. Okay, then there is a Jacques Lacan theory of mirror stage, subjectivity and language. Then we also have deconstruction by Derrida, instability of meaning. Okay, meaning is deferred. Then we have Michael Foucault, who have given the theory of power, knowledge, discourse, marginalization. He's very important, and they all are very important for your exam. So let us explore our literary genres one by one and stay active. So first one is poetry. We have thousands variety of poetries in the postmodern age. Like postmodern poetry reflects fragmentation. Postmodern, it is the feature of postmodernism, fragmentation, irony, subjectivity. Modernism work on objectivity. Now they work on subjectivity and experimentation. They love to experiment with poetry, with novel, with the fiction. Unlike modernist poetry, which often sought universal truth or heroic expressions, postmodernism poetry embraces uncertainty, personal perspective and cultural plurality. Okay, So these were the features, like they have fragmented structure, lines and strings may be broken or irregular, like we have free verse, they have fractured modern experience, like life is not smooth, it is in fragmentation, sometimes we are happy, sometimes we are sad. So they express the poetry in that way. They have self-reflexivity and metafictional element. Poems were often comment on their own writing or existence. Okay, they express their own goodness and badness. We have intertextuality and pastiche. There's a mixing of literary, historical, cultural reference. That what is intertextuality? It means that one text is related to another one, and you can find the another text material in the one text, that they are related to each other. Okay, like in today's time we are reading the postmodern literature, but you will find the lines which are related to romantic age or maybe the Elizabethan age. That is intertextuality. Okay, and you know what, that the age is never new, it forms with the help of the previous one. So that is intertextuality. The focus is on identity and politics, like we can find the themes of feminism, post-colonialism, sexuality, which are prominent theme, racism. Okay, first important, we have confessional poetry. What is conventional poetry? So confession means to confess your feelings, to confess the ideas which are in your mind. So confessional poetry, it emerged in 1950s and 1960s, focusing on personal, psychological and on taboo subject like mental illness, trauma and the intimate relationship. We have Sylvia Plath, the most prominent writer of confessional poetry. Emily Dickinson. Okay, we have Kamala Das. They are confessional poet. They expressed their feeling very with staunch writing, with staunch words. Whatever they felt inside, they just penned down. Okay, like Sylvia Plath, she wrote Daddy, which is dedicated to his father. Actually, it is her autobiographical work. It explores his trauma, oppression and the father-daughter relationship. It was very, disturbed. It is, and you know what, Sylvia Plath, she is very depressed soul, and she died by suicide. And you know what, the amazing fact is that she died by gassing herself. Okay, she just put on the stove and put her head into the oven and blast. Okay, so look at the pathetic that she has chosen for herself. So this is the depression. She's very depressed soul. It is said that Ted Hughes, he's actually husband, and because the relationship between the Ted Hughes and Sylvia Plath is very bad, it was very disturbed, it was corrupted, so she suicide. So you can find the patheticness, the depression, the stress in her wordings as well. Like she wrote Lady Lazarus, which confronts death, resurrection, defiance. It is metaphorical Holocaust imagery. Then Ariel, same theme of identity, death, transformation, symbolizes emotional and poetic liberation. The Bell Jar, autobiographical actually work है उनका, which is on mental illness, societal expectation of women. So all works of Sylvia Plath have the same theme of death, suicide, depression, trauma. Okay, so that's why she is confessional poet. Then we have Anne Sexton, Robert Lowell. They all are confessional poet, and they all have the similar theme. Anne Sexton wrote Live or Die. Look at the title. It explores depression, and it is a Pulitzer Prize winning work actually. Then Transformation, it is a fairy tale. It is retelling of fairy tale from feminist perspective. Then To Bedlam and Part Way Back, PYQ है हमारा. It deals with mental illness, personal trauma and societal constraint. Then Robert Lowell, important writer, he wrote life studies, personal experience, family history, social issue, highly influential confessional poetry. Then For the Union That, PVQ, which explore history, politics, morality through personal and public memory. Okay, so these three are our confessional poet and very important. We have Black Mountain Poet. Now you are thinking why they are Black Mountain Poet. The reason is Black Mountain is actually the name of university, and because they are from that university. So collectively they were known as the Black Mountain Poets, and they have edited the Black Mountain Review magazine. So they were active during 1940s and 1950s. So these poets emphasized projective verse, which focuses on breath, line, open forms rather than traditional meter. For example, Charles Olson, the maximum poems, Call Me Ishmael, very important. It is actually reinterprets classic literature in personal fragmented voice. Then the maximum poems, which is on history, geography, okay, just have a look on the works. Then we have Robert Greeley, very important so far as Black Mountain Poet is concerned, because he edited that magazine. He wrote The Island, For Love. If we had, they have idea like minimalistic, emotional, focusing on personal relationship. We have Robert Duncan, who wrote The Opening of the Field. Again, they have same projective words. Now then we have Beat Generation. The poet, the post-World War period, second, it literary movement emphasized anti-establishment values, spirituality, freedom, exploration of consciousness. So it became the Beat Generation, okay, like Allen Ginsberg, who wrote Kaddish, Hole, that is means rebellion against conformity, spiritual quest, critique of industrial society. Yani ki you can say the existential crisis they feel, okay. Then we have Jack Kerouac, important, On the Road, the Dharma Bums, okay, the important works by Jack Kerouac. Other members like George Corso, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, they focuses on experimentation, social critique and urban life, and this is the important movement as well. So keep in mind all the members. Then we have Adrienne Rich, who wrote Diving into the Wreck, the feminist identity, and I think you have read the poem in class 12th. Then we have Seamus Heaney, who wrote Death of a Naturalist, important, and he was a Nobel laureate as well. So he wrote Digging, okay. So you have to read thoroughly the poem's name of Seamus Heaney. Then Ted Hughes, Birthday Letter, Hawk Roosting, okay. Thought Folks, important one. Then we have Philip Larkin, who wrote The Whitsun Wedding, Sad Steps, with the verse. They are every PYQs, okay. So these are very important writers. Next one is Derek Walcott, who wrote Omerus. This is again our PYQ. So you have to read about Seamus Heaney, Ted Hughes, Philip Larkin, Derek Walcott poem, okay. So the famous poem in the collection, okay. Then we have novels, and in novels you will find the fragmented and non-linear narratives, metafiction, satiriflexity, simulcera, intertextuality, irony, pastiche. These were the features of our novel as well. So the major novelists, the first one we have Thomas Pynchon. Thomas Pynchon wrote Gravity's Rainbow. Then he wrote The Crying of Lot 49, which have theme of fear, history, technology, postmodern crisis, chaos in the works. Then we have Kurt Vonnegut, who wrote Slaughterhouse-Five, PYQ, and very important work. Then Cat's Cradle wrote on absurdity, satire, anti-establishment critique, okay. Then we have Don DeLeo, who wrote White Noise, Libra. He wrote on media, culture, postmodern identity. Then we have Salman Rushdie, Midnight Children, the Satanic Verses. It is very important to read about Salman Rushdie, and I have made a separate video on top 20 most important Indian writers asked frequently in our exam. So have a look on that video. In that video, I have explained very well about Salman Rushdie, okay, and he is very important writer. He is the most prominent writer of musical realism with Gabriel Marcuse. And we have Margaret Atwood, The Handmaid's Tale, Oryx and Crake, okay, The Testament. And in The Handmaid's Tale, she has given the idea of dystopian novel. Earlier I told you that we have two types of theory, utopia and dystopia. Utopia means Ram Rajya, a good life, and dystopia is opposite of utopia. So she presented in Handmaid's Tale the sexual servitude, the women patheticness, okay, the female illness in the fiction place, Gilead, and to popularize that place, women become the slave. Toni Morrison, who wrote Beloved, The Bluest Eye, Song of Solomon, Sula, the story of Sula and Neil. Okay? In The Bluest Eye, the girl, she has longing for the blue eyes. It actually satires on white beauty standards. Okay, and in her work she presented first one is racism and gender biasing and gender discrimination in that work. So Kazuo Ishiguro, who is famous for The Remains of the Day, Never Let Me Go, they are PYQs. Then J.M. Coetzee, who is known for Disgrace, Waiting for the Barbarians, and Nobel Prize winner. Okay, and we have Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Magical Realism. He is the father of magical realism, Nobel Prize winner. He wrote 100 Years of Solitude, Love in the Time of Cholera. Okay, he is very important, prominent. Then we have Paulo Coelho, who wrote The Alchemist, and I think you have seen the book The Alchemist by Paulo. Then he wrote Brida. Okay, so they are important novelists. Agatha Christie, who wrote Witches of Death, Mistress of Mystery, Queen of Crime, and you have to work on the list of characters of postmodern period, because in the postmodern novel they asked characters very frequently. Okay, in The Bluest Eye we have Pecola. She is famous for The Mousetrap, written in 1952. Then we have Jeanette Winterson, who wrote Oranges Are Not Only the Fruit. It is actually based on the queer theory. Then she wrote The Passion. Then we have Christopher Isherwood, famous for Goodbye to Berlin, Journey to a War. Then we have Somerset Maugham, who wrote Of Human Bondage. He is actually a homosexual writer. So far as drama is concerned, postmodern drama reflects the fragmented, absurd and self-reflexive nature of postmodern thought. Unlike classical drama, which is linear plots and moral resolution, postmodern drama questions reality. This destabilizes narrative and experiment with forms and dark humor, irony, metathetically in their works. Movements and writers in the drama, we have theatre of absurd. It is coined by Martin Aslin. PYQ है and very important, and this movement highlights the absurdity of human existence and it using logical situations and languages to reflect existential uncertainty. Now, the major writers who were associated with theatre of absurd: Samuel Beckett, Waiting for Godot, Existential Crisis, They Are Waiting for the God. Okay, then we have Harold Pinter, who is famous for The Birthday Party, The Caretaker. Okay, they have similar themes. Then we have Tom Stoppard, who wrote Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. It is the parody of Hamlet. We have Eugene Ionesco, who wrote Rhinoceros. So these are very important writers, and you have to make a list of their works as well. Okay, especially Harold Pinter chronology, Tom Stoppard work, and Samuel Beckett Waiting for Godot. Then we have Arthur Miller, who wrote Death of a Salesman, The Crucible. Okay, in The Death of a Salesman we have Billy Loman, and the protagonist committed suicide so that his family live happily. It is actually based on American Dream. Okay, then we have Crucible, allegory of McCarthyism. It is PYQ, that what is actually the McCarthyism term. Okay, then we have Edward Albee, who is Afraid of Virginia Woolf, important work. We have Carol Churchill, Top Girls, important drama. In Top Girls we have Thatcherian concept, Margaret Thatcher. She wrote Cloud 9. So her works actually based on feminism, gendered roles, colonial critique, historical juxtaposition. Then we have Doris Lessing, who is Nobel Prize winner. The Grass is Singing, PYQ, The Golden Notebook, in which we have Anna, the main character. She presented anti-war message, communalism message. Okay, and this Golden Notebook is divided into 4 parts: the black notebook, yellow notebook, red notebook, and blue notebook. Okay, like the red notebook tells the tragic love story. Okay, so read about this work in detail. And she wrote a novel series on Martha Quest, important, like she invented this character Martha Quest. Then we have William Golding, who wrote Lord of Flies, very important work. Okay, read about this work. There is a group of children who were divided into two parties. One is older boys, then one they have younger boys. Okay, and we have Ian McEwan, who wrote Amsterdam, Saturday, very important works. Then Kingsley Amis, who wrote Lucky Jim, then John Osborne, Look Back in Anger. They all are related to absurd theater, American Dream. It is about Jimmy Porter and his wife Ellison. They married happily, but because of American Dream, there is patheticness in the relationship, which is presented by our writer, and he also wrote The Entertainer 1957. So I will make a separate video in which I will tell you about the most important British writer, okay, and their chronology and which work is very important. I will try to make this video very soon. We are not able to make videos continuously, so we are sorry for that. Then we have John Bryan, who wrote The Room at the Top. Okay, so I am just telling you the important work of major writers. Alan C. Leto, who wrote Saturday Night, Sunday Morning. It is divided into two parts, Saturday night and Sunday morning. The net हमारा PYQ है. So let us move to the criticism part. Criticism, in postmodern criticism, it questions on absolute truth, stable meaning and universal interpretation. They were focusing on power, language and subjectivity. Like we have structuralism. The key members were Ferdinand de Saussure, Claude Lévi-Strauss, Roland Barthes. Okay, death of the author. They focuses on underlying structure in literature and language. That meaning is derived from relationship within system rather than from external reference. For example, they give binary opposition, like we have good, we have evil, utopia, dystopia, male, female. So they emphasizes on language as a system of signs. Okay, like Ferdinand Saussure, it is signifier and signified. They analyzed on structure, on semiotic system, that this is a tree and it is called a tree in different language with different structure, with different symbols. Post-structuralism, okay, the father of structuralism. Their response to structuralism, they emphasize on instability of meaning. They were told about subjective interpretation, like Derrida, deconstruction, Roland Barthes, Michael Foucault. They said that texts have multiple meaning and they are unstable. It depends on the reader's mind, that type of opinion they are getting from reading the text. And reader plays an active role in interpretation. Like we have read a poem. For me, the meaning may be different, and for you the meaning may be different, and there is a variation in the understanding. So this is what they post-structuralism called. They challenges the fixed intention. Then we have deconstruction, that texts are unstable and self-contradictory. Then we have Michael Foucault, who told about the power, knowledge, discourse, marginalization, like the work Discipline and Punish. He shows that how knowledge and power, they are interlinked. It challenges the dominant narratives. And we have Edward Said, who wrote Orientalism. Okay, he criticized the Western thought over Eastern, and he examines the Western representation of the East colonial discourse, that how the Western people actually decolonized the Eastern's one. We have Homi K. Bhabha, the location of culture, hybridity, ambivalence, mimicry. Then Gayatri Spivak, Can the Subaltern Speak? Voice of marginalized group. Okay, where then we have feminist criticism as well, which who focuses on gender, patriarchy, female subjectivity, like Adrienne Rich, Ellen Showalter, Tori Morrison, Toril Moy. They highlight the oppression and silenced voices in their work. So far as the literary movement is concerned, we have theatre of absurd, in which we find existentialism, illogical plot, repetition, meaningless dialogue, and it originated in 1950s. The writers like Samuel Beckett, Eugene Ionesco, Harold Pinter, Tom Stoppard are the key member. About Beat Generation, in which we read that Allen Ginsberg, Jane Kerouac, Georgie Corso, Lawrence Fringhetti, they were members. Then Black Mountain Poet, who wrote projective verse, We read conventional poetry, then magic realism, and the major member were Gabriel Gracia, who were the father of magical realism, Salman Rushdie, Isabel, then postcolonialism, feminist writing, metafiction. In the metafiction, we have Thomas Pynchon, John Fowles, Italo Calvino, then cyberpunk movement, in which we have William Gibson and Bruce Sterling. And we have minimalism. It actually originated in 1970s to 80s. They wrote on sparse language, focus on surface, understatement, and subtle language, that is minimalistic approach. The members Raymond Carver and Beetle. So it is on your screen, take a screenshot and revise it twice. Then eco-criticism, very important. We make it separate video on in literary theory. Eco-criticism means it is based on nature, environment, human nature relationship. Okay, like Lawrence Buell, the proponent, Cheryl Godfrey, they both are very important so far as eco-criticism is concerned. Then we have diasporic writing like Salman Rushdie, Bharti Mukherjee, Jhumpa Lahiri, okay, Meenakshi Mukherjee. We have global Anglophone writing, which is actually the present generation. English as a global medium, non-Western perspective, cultural plurality can be seen. For example, Aditi Roy, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, V.S. Naipaul, they were all related to global Anglophone writing. So, in nutshell, I will say that the postmodern age is ongoing reflective fragmentation, multiplicity, skepticism toward absolute truth, and its literature is experimental, political, social, conscious, and self-reflective, which making it both challenging and fascinating. So, understanding historical, social, political, literary context is very important. You have to remember major poets, novelists, dramatists, critics, and you have to focus on works, themes, literary movement, and the feature. And you have to link postmodern social and historical condition to literature. And this is your very important age, so you have to make notes or revise notes very thoroughly. Thank you for joining this lecture, and remember in exams always connect context with author, work, and theme, and you will master the postmodern and any age in English literature. Okay, so if you found this lecture helpful, then hit the bell icon and stay connected. So I will post my next video on literary movement, the major literary movement. So bye bye.